The company generated $11 billion in a single fiscal year. It owned prime commercial real estate across the continent. It dominated the market sector. Yet, a federal judge signed the liquidation order. This event was not a failure of sales or customer demand. The warehouses were full of inventory. The registers were processing cash. The collapse was engineered by a specific financial mechanism. We are taught that businesses fail when they stop making money. This is a lie. Modern finance allows a profitable business to die while its owners extract billions in guaranteed fees. The victim in this case was Toys R Us, a retail giant that did not die from natural causes. It was murdered by a system designed to monetize corporate destruction. To understand the theft, you must ignore the toys and the branding. You must look at the hard assets. The company owned hundreds of physical store locations and massive distribution centers. In 2005, 3 firms identified these assets: KKR, Bain Capital, and Vornado Realty Trust. They did not want to sell toys. They wanted to leverage the real estate. The price tag for the acquisition was $6.6 billion. The 3 firms did not have this money. They did not intend to use their own capital for the purchase. They used a leveraged buyout. This is the mechanism. Imagine you buy a house, but you force the house to pay the mortgage. The debt is placed on the asset itself. The firms put down only 20% of the purchase price. The remaining 80% was borrowed. The crucial detail is that Toys R Us became responsible for paying back that loan. Overnight, the company went from being financially healthy to owing $5 billion to creditors. The interest payments alone consumed $400 million of cash every single year. This debt is the trap. Before the buyout, the company used its profits to renovate stores and upgrade technology. After the buyout, all profits were diverted to service the interest. The physical stores began to rot. The carpets wore out. The lighting systems failed. The company could not afford basic maintenance because the banks demanded their $400 million first. Competitors like Amazon and Walmart were investing in logistics and websites. Toys R Us was paralyzed. Every dollar of revenue was already spent on debt before it hit the bank account. This is where the extraction begins. While the company suffocated, the 3 private equity firms began to pay themselves. They charged the company advisory fees for managing the disaster. The firms took out $470 million in fees and interest payments. They recovered their initial down payment quickly. They were now playing with the house's money. The risk had been transferred. If the company failed, the firms would lose nothing. If the company survived, they would extract more. It is a coin toss where they win both sides. The narrative in the media was that kids stopped buying toys. This is false. The global toy market grew during this period. The demand for the product never declined. The company was not killed by the market. It was killed by the balance sheet. The LBO model requires the host to bleed continuously to feed the parasite attached to it. The initial debt load was suffocating, but the owners found a way to extract more. In 2010, they executed a maneuver known as a dividend recapitalization. This mechanism allows the owners to force the company to take out a new loan. The proceeds of this loan do not go to the business. They go directly to the owners' pockets. Toys R Us borrowed an additional $400 million. The private equity firms immediately transferred this cash to themselves as a dividend. The company kept the obligation to repay it. This is the second theft. They had already recovered their initial investment through fees. Now they were stripping the equity. The company was being hollowed out from the inside, legally. The operational impact was immediate. With no cash for capital improvements, the shopping experience degraded. The hard assets, the stores themselves, began to fail. Maintenance budgets were slashed to zero. Customers walked into stores that felt abandoned. Floors were dirty. Inventory was disorganized. The staff was reduced to skeleton crews. The premium brand was decaying into a discount warehouse. While the stores rotted, the debt covenants tightened. These are the strict rules set by banks. If cash flow dropped below a certain level, the banks could seize control of the cash registers. This created a panic in the supply chain. Toy manufacturers like Hasbro and Mattel watched the balance sheet. They realized Toys R Us might not be able to pay for the inventory. The vendors demanded tighter payment terms. They wanted cash up front. This is the death spiral. A company with no liquidity cannot buy the inventory it needs to generate the revenue to survive. By 2017, the interest payments had totaled $5 billion. The company had paid its purchase price in interest alone, yet the principal debt remained exactly the same. The private equity firms had already won. They had extracted their fees and dividends. The bankruptcy filing was not a tragedy for them. It was simply the final phase of the transaction. The liquidation began. 30,000 employees received zero severance. Their pensions were underfunded. The bankruptcy laws prioritized the secured creditors, the banks and the owners, over the people who did the work. The physical assets were sold for scrap. The real estate was auctioned off. The brand name was sold to a new holding company. The entity known as Toys R Us ceased to exist. This was not a business failure. It was a successful financial extraction. The patient died on the operating table, but the surgeons billed for the procedure and sold the organs. The harsh reality is that this pattern is legal. It is common. It happens to grocery chains, pet stores, and hospitals. The mechanism of the leveraged buyout rewards debt over stability. Efficiency is the excuse. Profit is the goal. But the result is often a transfer of wealth from workers and communities to a small group of asset managers who face no liability. The system is designed this way. Capital is protected. Labor is disposable. When the music stops, the ones holding the debt are the ones who lose their chairs. This specific imbalance is the defining feature of the era. The massive risk is socialized among the thousands of workers, while the profit is privatized strictly within the walls of the boardroom. Toys R Us is not a unique tragedy. It is a standard output of the algorithm. The same code has been executed on Payless Shoes, Claire's Stores, and Sports Authority. The most brutal example is Simmons Bedding. This company made a product everyone needs. It was profitable for a century, yet it was sold 7 times between different private equity firms. With every sale, the debt load increased. Each new owner used the company's credit card to pay the previous owner. The debt piled up like sediment until the structure collapsed. Simmons Bedding went bankrupt multiple times. The total profit generated by the company was consumed by interest. The owners, however, made $750 million in profit. This proves the separation of performance and reward. In a normal market, you make money by building a better bed. In the LBO market, you make money by moving the debt. The mechanism relies on the concept of other people's money. The firms risk very little of their own capital. They risk the pension funds and endowments that invest with them. If the deal explodes, the pension funds lose. The workers lose. The private equity firm simply moves on to the next deal, collecting a 2% management fee regardless of the outcome. This fee structure is the engine of the industry. 2% of assets under management plus 20% of the profits. This is called the 2 and 20 rule. The 2% is guaranteed. Even if the company burns to the ground, the managers get paid for watching the fire. There is no incentive to prevent the fire. In fact, the tax code subsidizes this destruction. The interest payments on the massive debt are tax deductible. The government effectively pays the firms to load companies with debt. This deduction encourages leverage. It makes debt cheaper than equity. It signals to the market that it is smarter to owe money than to own value. The incentives are inverted. The result is a fragile economy. Companies are stripped of their cash reserves. They have no buffer for hard times. When a recession hits, these debt-laden companies are the first to die. We saw this in 2008. We saw it in 2020. The companies owned by private equity failed at a rate much higher than their independent peers. But the firms argue they provide efficiency. They claim they trim the fat. In reality, they often cut the muscle and the bone, leaving the patient unable to walk. Efficiency, in this context, usually means firing staff. It means reducing benefits. It means sourcing cheaper, lower quality materials. It extracts short-term cash at the cost of long-term viability. The customer notices the decline. The product breaks faster. The service is slower. The brand loses its reputation. But by the time the reputation is gone, the owners have already cashed out. This is the pump and dump strategy, legalized and scaled up to the billion-dollar level. It is not illegal. It is standard operating procedure for the masters of the universe. They operate in the shadows. Their names are not on the storefronts. You know Toys R Us. You do not know the names of the partners at the private equity firm. This anonymity is their shield. When the store closes, the anger is directed at the brand. The managers who engineered the collapse are already working on the next acquisition. The system is efficient, but not at creating value. It is efficient at transferring wealth. It moves money from the operational economy to the financial economy, from the makers to the takers. The destruction of a toy store is insignificant. Toys are optional, but the algorithm has evolved. The firms are no longer satisfied with retail. They have moved into necessities. Private equity is now the dominant force in housing. They are buying single-family homes by the thousands. They are not buying them to live in. They are buying them to rent to you forever. The logic is simple. You can stop buying toys. You cannot stop paying for a roof over your head. The recurring revenue is guaranteed. The tenant pays the mortgage for the landlord. It extends to your body. Emergency room staffing companies are now owned by private equity. When you rush to the hospital, the doctor treating you is an employee of a financial portfolio. Studies show that when private equity buys nursing homes, mortality rates increase. Staffing is cut to service debt. The efficiency of the balance sheet is paid for in human years. Even your pets are not safe. The veterinary industry is being consolidated. Independent clinics are bought, rebranded, and prices are raised. The emotional bond with your animal is a leverage point for profit. The firms have trillions of dollars in dry powder. This is cash that must be spent. They are hunting for anything with cash flow. Car washes, dental practices, HVAC repair. The local economy is being replaced by a rental economy. The dentist, the vet, and the landlord all report to the same zip code in Manhattan. The illusion of choice remains, but the owner is singular. This is the final stage of the mechanism, the extraction of value from the very infrastructure of daily life. Every transaction you make includes a tax paid to the debt holders. There is no villain in this story. There are only incentives. The pension funds need returns. The firms need fees. The banks need interest. The machine is hungry and it must eat. Toys R Us was just a practice run, a case study in how to disassemble a legacy for parts. The methods perfected there are now being applied to the rest of the economy. The outcome is a world where ownership is concentrated in the hands of the few who manage the debt, while the many rent their lives 1 month at a time. The system does not care if the company survives. It does not care if the service is good. It only cares that the debt is serviced. You are not the customer, you are the collateral. We are told that capitalism is a system of risk and reward. If you take the risk, you get the reward. The leveraged buyout proves this definition is outdated. The modern financial architect has engineered the risk out of the equation for himself. He bets with the company's credit. He pays himself with the company's cash. He is immune. When Toys R Us collapsed, the CEO who presided over the final years received a bonus. The workers who locked the doors received nothing. The hierarchy of protection is absolute. This creates a moral hazard. If there is no punishment for failure, there is no reason to be careful. Recklessness becomes a strategy because the downside is transferred to others. The legal structure protects them. The private equity firm is distinct from the companies it destroys. They are shielded by layers of limited liability corporations. The infection cannot reach the host. We are moving towards a neofeudal economy, a class of asset owners who extract rent from the productive class. They do not build, they do not invent, they only own. The toy store was a symbol of a different era, an era where a business existed to sell products to people. That era has been liquidated. The inventory has been sold. The new era is about financial engineering. The product is irrelevant. The customer is a data point. The employee is a cost liability. The only reality is the debt service payment. You wonder why things are more expensive. You wonder why quality is down. You wonder why iconic brands disappear. Look for the debt. Look for the management fees. Look for the leverage. The mechanism is running right now. As you watch this, a deal is being signed. A hospital, a grocery chain, or a software company is being loaded with debt it cannot pay. The wealth is not gone. It was not lost. It was transferred. It sits in accounts in the Cayman Islands and Delaware. The wreckage of the company is just the receipt. Toys R Us is dead. But KKR, Bain, and Vornado are alive. They are wealthier than ever. The system worked perfectly. The patient died, but the operation was a resounding financial success. There is no lesson here. There is only the arithmetic. If you are not the one collecting the interest, you are the one paying it. And the bill is due.